Lust. Lust is the sin that can turn a perfectly rational human into a love-struck puppy, chasing after every shiny object or person that catches their eye. In the grand scheme of hell's hierarchy, lust is like that annoying itch you can never quite scratch. And if this itch follows you into the afterlife, terrible things are in store for you. In this divine comedy, Dante places the lustful in the second circle of hell. They're punished by being swept up in an eternal windstorm, tossed around like leaves in a Category 5 hurricane. It's poetic justice at its finest. The very passions that made the lustful spin out of control in life now have them literally spinning in the afterlife. Imagine being caught in a never-ending roller coaster ride, but instead of fun, there's just endless nausea and regret. So the punishment for lust in hell is basically a cosmic told you so from the universe. You spent your life chasing after desires, and now those desires have turned into eternal torment. But let's say your soul's not doomed for the fiery depths, just a little too spicy for heaven right away. In that case, you'll have to make a temporary pit stop at purgatory to be cleansed of your sin. Those guilty of lust must walk through literal flames to purify themselves, where the flames symbolize the consuming nature of uncontrolled desires and lustful thoughts. It's like the universe's version of a detox, but instead of green juice, it's fire. The good news is your sins have now been washed and you're free to enter the pearly gates. Gluttony. You're at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and the options are endless. You've got a plate piled high with everything from cheesy pasta to desserts, and you start eating like there's no tomorrow. Sure, you feel full, but there's still so much more food left to try. Fast forward to later, and you're lying on the couch, clutching your belly like you've swallowed a bowling ball, questioning every life choice that led to that fifth helping. Now imagine being this overindulgent in everything you do in life, but instead of a comfy couch, you land a permanent spot in hell, where your love for excess turns into a buffet of nightmares. Back in medieval times, folks believed that gluttons in hell would be force-fed a diet of rats, toads, and snakes, a sort of infernal fear factor. Dante, however, paints a different kind of picture. These extreme overeaters have been condemned to the third circle of hell, where they're stuck in a vile slush made by never-ending cold and foul rain. Think of it as being trapped in the world's grossest food fight, except instead of food, you're wading through a slushy mixture of filth and regret with no exit in sight. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's also a three-headed dog who is here to constantly gnaw and chew on your soul like it's his favorite squeaky toy. He is an embodiment of the insatiable hunger that drove you to this point. However, if you're lucky enough to land in purgatory, your fate is slightly different, but no less torturous. You'll be starved and surrounded by the smell of delicious fruit that's forever just out of reach. It's like wandering through an eternal farmer's market where the peaches are perfect, but you can't really buy anything. So in hell, gluttony isn't just about the food, it's about the never-ending cycle of craving and disgust. Greed. If you're the type who's constantly chasing after the good things in life, so much so that you don't mind stepping on a few toes, or even whole people to get what you want, then you might just be a bit too greedy. In Christian teachings, greed, or avarice, is that never-ending craving for wealth, or possessions, that makes you feel like you've got a black hole where your wallet should be. The Bible is pretty clear that loving money too much is like setting your GPS straight to a miserable afterlife. In Inferno, Dante gives you a front-row seat to the punishment for greed. The greedy, along with the prodigal, who have wasted their wealth, are tossed into the fourth circle of hell. Here they're condemned to push giant boulders back and forth, crashing into each other for all eternity, like some sort of demonic bumper cars. Picture a never-ending game of rock, paper, scissors, except it's just big, heavy rocks and there's no winning, just eternal torment. The massive boulders represent the material possessions that dominated these people's lives, while their circular movement depicts the pointlessness of their obsession with wealth. Meanwhile, in Purgatorio, the greedy are punished by being bound and lying face down on the ground, unable to move. They're forced to reflect on their obsession with earthly riches, literally being stuck looking at the ground. It's like being glued to the floor at a luxury store, surrounded by all the things you once coveted but can't reach anymore. And it's not just about the physical weight or immobility. The real kicker is the endless regret and frustration that comes with these punishments. In hell, the greedy are forever haunted by the realization that their pursuit of wealth was as futile as trying to fill a bottomless pit. Sloth. You constantly find yourself snoozing the alarm again and again in the morning. It's the same drill every day. The idea of getting up feels like climbing Everest in flip-flops. So you sink deeper into the blankets, thinking you'll just for 5 more minutes. The next thing you know, half the day is gone and all you've accomplished is a masterclass in procrastination. That's Sloth for you, the tempting allure of, I'll do it later. Until later turns into never. When Sloth takes control of your body, it's a slippery slope to apathy and spiritual decay. You start neglecting your spiritual duties, and before long, you're calling for divine intervention, but not the good kind. Well, lucky for you, Purgatory has just the workout regimen to get you back in shape. It's the kind of activity that makes you wish you'd been more proactive in life. The slothful souls are condemned to race around the mountain of purgatory like they're late for the world's most important meeting. The irony is that there's no finish line, so you just keep on running uphill for eternity. This is to make up for all the time you wasted doing nothing. It's the cosmic equivalent of being stuck on a treadmill forever, all because you couldn't be bothered to get moving when it actually mattered. But this eternal jog will feel like a stroll in the park compared to what's in store for the really lazy folks down in hell. These souls are part of the fifth circle, where they're stuck in the swampy, dark waters of the river Styx, depicting their lack of clarity in life. Here they are perpetually submerged in the murky depths, unable to form coherent words as their voices bubble up in the mud. This illustrates their inability to take any kind of meaningful action to change their lives. It's basically a live-action replay of the life they've lived, trapped in a stagnant, suffocating bog with no way out. Wrath! Imagine you're stuck in traffic and some driver cuts you off without even a glance in your direction. Your blood starts to boil, your grip tightens on the steering wheel, and suddenly you're fantasizing about turning your car into a battering ram. That surge of anger is basically wrath trying to convince you to do something that you would later regret. And if wrath becomes your go-to reaction whenever something bad happens, then you're probably paving your way to some pretty unpleasant afterlife accommodations. The punishments for wrath and sloth are interrelated to each other. Just like the sloths, the wrathful are condemned to the fifth circle of hell, but unlike the sloths who get to lurk beneath the murky waters, the wrathful are stuck on the surface. But they're not just floating around peacefully like rubber ducks in a bathtub. Instead, they're locked in a never-ending brawl, tearing each other apart in a chaotic, eternal rage. It's like being in Fight Club, except you can't escape, and everyone around you is just as angry as you are. The eternal boxing match represents their uncontrollable anger in life. The situation in purgatory isn't any smoother either, as the resentful are surrounded by thick, blinding smoke that chokes them and blocks their sight. It's disorienting, suffocating, and frustrating. It's like being stuck in a foggy maze, where every wrong turn reminds you that letting anger cloud your judgment wasn't a good idea.